S is for Shady Sand Shuffle by It Is JM. It's not about what you're taking away from the poor bastard. It's about what you're giving him as a replacement. It was early morning while the fog was still out, and a thick cover of mist had surrounded us. As it appeared, the only world that existed was the spear of visibility we had before what we saw fade in the haze of gray. I wanted to get lost in that fog. It seemed so tranquil yet mysterious. It hid all the green of the ocean, all the ships in the harbor, and all the blue in the sky. Instead, there was just one thing and one thing alone. Peace. Stillness. A harmony between time and nature. There was a nip in the air, accompanied by a soft breeze. It tickled at my mane with a delicate chill, hinting in the air that a bright and sunny day was yet to come. Just not yet. Crackle had a rather loud, rough voice. It was especially strident because he was currently furious, spitting every time he voiced the letter F. I heard you say, little fuckers. Laser treats you three like royalty when you're nothing but shit stains looking over as being strung up by your innards. Crackle paused. He was looking at Risk, Rant, and I along the edge of the dock. The three of us were slaves. We served under our master, Lancer, on a ship known as the Galleon Venture. Crackle was the new prophet of that ship. In landlubber terms, he held the discipline of the ship's crew, especially of the slaves. Got off the ship early in the morning and onto this dock. Nobody but Crackle and I knew why we were here. That made me ultimately terrified. I'll just about had it. You bilge rats are going to get your bloody dues, and I'm going to be the one who gives them to you. Saltwater splashed up against the pillars underneath us to break the silence. Crackle paced back and forth, glaring death at our forward foreheads. We simply stared at the wood below his hose. We didn't dare stare straight at him. I could see the whip on his side in the corner of my eye, starving for blood. I remember how the winds whispered in my ear no more than a minute ago. But today was supposed to be a sunny day. So tell me, Crackle started to say. He took a menacing step towards the three of us. Which one of you took it? It. The word echoed in my head. I knew what he was talking about. This wasn't merely a charade of dominance or typical discipline. That was revenge. Pardon me, sir, but what was taken? Ryan asked. My heart went into my throat, because I knew what would come next. Whoosh! Rant squealed as the whip smacked against her whip blades. She knelt to the dock and began to moan for the surging pain of the whip slash. She clenched her teeth and closed her tear-filled eyes, so the whip didn't leave a singe on her body, but her soul as well. My mouth dropped in disbelief. This was really happening right now. I could feel my stomach sunk as I realized that this was all because of me. Don't act dumb with me, Crackle kicked Rant to her side. She groaned and trembled as he stared back at him. All she knew, that last wasn't going to be her last. I glanced over at Risk, and she was keeping her signature stone face downward. No emotion was being shown at all. I knew she was channeling all that fire to pure, raw hate. If I only had a fraction of that energy right now. Instead, I felt like a twig beneath a cyclone of guilt and judgment. Which one of you fuckers took it? Stark crackled as he leaned back neck toward each of us. His accent was that of a thick northerner. His actual pronunciation of the words was something to the effect of "Which one of your selectors did it?" I could smell his breath. He had a reek of rum and carrots. The most unpleasant combination. Oh! He groaned as he was beginning to grow impatient. Which one of you no-cuts scumbags did it? His arm levitated the whip in a striking stance, ready to go at the moment's notice if he wasn't going to get an answer soon. We all stood there, all of us silent once more. I clenched my teeth as the hairs of my body stood up. Crackle knelt down and screamed, "My fucking red delicious!" into Rand's ear. She flinched and covered her face with her hose, protecting herself from the potential slashes of our Diakon. That is my bloody sunblock, and you want to talk it to you! Crackle continued. No, sir! Rand stammered. No? Crackle asked with fake disbelief. Not of us, sir! Not at all, sir! It is lost to you! Crackle's face swiftly scrunched in front of mine. His yellow eyes were lit with flames. That is you! The odor of rum and carrots slanted my nostrils as the screaming slanted my ears. I shook at the knees and felt like I was going to barf and faint. No! I was trying to say no, but my stutter wasn't helping. Oh, shut the fuck up, Ragolondo! I felt a quick tug of my mane and my head was pulled to look down. He couldn't stand the sight of me, let alone hear the sputter of my sentences. I took this as a mercy as I heard Crackle's footsteps murder phone down the line. "It's you!" he shouted to Risk. Crackle gave no rest for Risk, even though she was a mute. In fact, he has yelled at her the most out of all of us because she couldn't speak. Like all punishments, she simply kept her head down and balled up all her fury like Grant knew she was. "Ho ho ho ho! I bet it was all!" Crackle poked Risk's forehead with a hoof. His fire was playing with hers. Only a matter of time before some pony was going to blow. "Hill, you got to admit that both of you are fucking lookaliks!" he grumbled, darting his keys back and forth from Risk to Rant and Rant to Risk. He hated those twins as much as he hated me. He hated all of us. But Rant and Risk didn't deserve this, because I was the guilty one. I took one of Crackle's apples from his salad bag while I was taking a nap yesterday. I thought he wouldn't miss it since he looked like he had plenty of extras. Why didn't I realize he would keep count? And why hadn't I revealed myself earlier? Now both my friends were going to suffer. I gulped as I boldly looked up at Crackle. I had to stop this. I had to at least try. "Sir, please," I began to say softly, but all my words were stuck in my mouth. "This is just a..." My stutter started to kick in. It had to take control of my mouth and made my tongue kick and my teeth rattle. Now I hit the point of no return. I couldn't speak perfectly in one attempt and I knew it, so I paused mid-sentence and tried to start over. Crackle was getting on and annoyed with the other hand. "This is just an water Ragolondo!" he growled at me. I could hear his lip hissing at me too. So I started the sentence over again, but this time I tried getting all the words out faster. "This is just a misunderstanding." Of all the times for my stutter, it had to be now. Celestia, have mercy. I tried to continue on. "Misunderstanding." The whip slashed across my cheek. It was like the side of my face was set ablaze with pain. I yelped and jerked backward. I ended up almost falling out the edge of the dock. My reflexes caused me to collapse forward onto my stomach, a few inches away from my edge. I had forgotten the harbor was there. I put a hoof on my cheek, but it couldn't contain the stinging agony. The whip jumped around frantically. Crackle was ready to lash again. "I don't care how valuable lots of things you are. All of you are getting your legs beaten all the way to..." Before he could whip us again, Crackle stopped dead in his tracks. I slowly glanced up and he had his gaze towards the fog. Something had caught his eye. I turned and looked out that way as well, to see what he was looking at. There was an object coming through the haze. It was a small dingy boat, with a sole stallion rowing in it. "Who goes there?" Crackle being asked with deadly agitation. He was both annoyed that some pony was interrupting one of his discipline sessions, yet cautious since an unidentified pony was moving in on a dock they could clearly have no business in. The stallion and dinghy did not reply, though. He rode soundlessly to the front of the dock like a wisp, then stopped. He stood up and jumped to the dock, tying down the boat with one of the dock's beams. "Oi! Don't anchor there! This is the reserve dock!" Crackle yelled, this time with more assertion. He turned his back on us three and began menacingly to approach the stallion. The stallion looked up, a coat covering his body, as well as a pirateer's hat casing a shadow over his face. His darkened eyes stared back at Crackle as he got into his hose and anchoring the dinghy. "Doesn't this belong to Ned, sir?" he asked. "Of course it does! Who the hell are you?" "Someone you should embark at, mate," the stallion said as he tipped his hat back. He had a solid tan-furred face. "Not so expecting me." Crackle was unconvinced and he held his ground. "I didn't hear about nobody coming to see him, especially no vagrants there. Do you even know who you're talking to?" "Oh, apologies, mate. I mistook you for a knave," the stallion said as he took off his hat and placed it on his beam his dinghy was anchored to. He let Crackle with an expression that contained a passive lethality. "No. Do those ponies deserve answers you're giving to them? Or are you more degenerate than I originally took you for?" "Hey!" Crackle advanced a couple of paces, having the distance between the stallion and himself before stopping. "That's all! Fuck you! Second of all, these ponies are slaves. The stallion shrugged at that fact. The ponies are the same, mate. Crackle's physical advance was not effective, so he tried his verbal skills again. These pieces are shite on property dozens of months that the dock are standing on. Speaking of let's, mate, if you don't get your flag back on your piss-on dinghy, it's here out of the harbour. I'll be glad to sit your thought ride. Crackle was practically seeping with rage. His horn was starting to glow. I was expecting a knife to pop out and slay the stallion right there. But there he stood, defiant of Crackle's presence. Oi! I have no doubt that you'll help me. The stallion stuck a hoof in the air, nonchalantly pointed back at Crackle. Well, do you know that there are plenty of stallions out there who will be more than inclined to loosen you up if you like? Or if you don't visit one of them recently? A smirk grew on the stallion's face. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Crackle started to advance, just little paces towards the stallion. I saw Risk run past her and charged right at him. You piece of... Risk tackled Crackle down with the force of a buffalo, slamming down into the wooden planks with a sinking thunk. Rand and I watched it hard as Risk began to tackle Crackle's head with her hose. He was squealing in pain with every punch. Risk! Nim, stop! Rand pleaded with her sister. In a heartbeat, the stallion was on her. Tackled off for Crackle was trying to pin her down. Take it easy, Ross. The stallion was trying to say. Risk started to kick wildly out, and they both grappled one another. What? Was the only word that came out of my mouth. Sweet into the stars, stop it! Rand shouted at the two. Risk became frantic. She knew how much bigger the stallion was compared to her. So he tried to throw some hoof punches at the stallion's head, which he blocked the majority of. The ones that did connect only served to make the stallion visibly angry. He used what strength he had to get her completely underneath himself. I knew Risk had lost the fight once he had accomplished this. The stallion then got Risk into a headlock. I could see the fear in her eyes. Finally realized it was all over now. As he still flailed his limbs around like a mad pony, fighting until the end. The stallion tightened his grip, and Risk's body tensed up. She had let one single moan before her oxygen was cut off, and she couldn't breathe. It was over in seconds. Her legs grew limp as she fell into the dock without any resistance. The stallion released her, and quickly got to his feet. He stared directly at me now. Never had my bowels been so close on the verge of bursting everything it had. I lowered my head to show I meant no harm. Slaves on the ship had been conditioned to do so in order to show submission. However, Rand simply stood there speechless. She was looking at the limp Risk with her mouth agape at the sight of her limp sister. Sis, Rand said, paralyzed. The stallion relaxed his stance. He must have told himself that the two of us weren't going to make a move on him. He then sighed and gave Rand a sympathetic look. Still behind us. Still behind us. It took a moment more for a breath to wipe the sweat off his forehead. She's a hell of a fish, I'll give her that. Mother Celestia! Crackle whimpered. He was still alive, damn it. I could see he was cringing in lots of pain. Peace. The stallion slowly walked over and stood above Crackle, tilting his head. What's broken? He asked. Was this stranger about to help him? Weren't they he tears his throats a few seconds ago? I thought to myself. My dead soldier! Sakes alive! Cultivating posters on yourself. In my saddlebags! Crackle moaned. Chris must have outright shattered Crackle's shoulder when she tackled into the planks. She must have given him the tackle after all. Aye, the stallion replied. He shot a glance towards Rand and me. I was standing alone while Rand went over and knelt by Risk, making sure that he was still breathing. And to make it doubly sure we weren't going anywhere, the stallion managed to dig into one of Crackle's saddlebags. You're going to need a splint for that shoulder of yours, the stallion commented. Fuck that I do! Crackle replied his usual self-dependent mentality. I don't want you to be bitching when you're busy taking me to answer about how your arms broke, and I am positive you don't want to be screaming like a fool either. Consider this a favor, huh? Hein! Crackle had all given into the pain and logic, not something he was usually accustomed to. He tried pointing a hoe to show the stallion where the bandages were. The bandages on! That's not the black eye. I see you did not hear, the stallion said. Ugh. Crackle closed his eyes. He was completely helpless, totally vulnerable. The stallion still hadn't gotten a pouncing out yet. How could it take this long, I thought? I looked over at the stallion and watched over his every move. It didn't take this long to find a potion in Crackle's saddlebag. I should know. The stallion then looked up, and we met each other's stare. He smirked, to which I could only tilt my head in embarrassment and confusion. He turned back to the saddlebag and took out a potion, and hung it out in front of Crackle's face. "Drink up, mate," the stallion said. "Thank you," Crackle said back. I never knew I would ever hear that statement from him. I was perplexed. This was a side of Crackle I had not seen before. He was being thankful for once. Not only that, but he was letting a total stranger tend to his wounds. Never once would he be caught in such a weak, unyielding position. And yet here he was. Pain makes a slave out of anybody, I thought. While stuck in mid-thought, the stallion took something else out of the bag. I didn't catch what it was. "No, you're going to have to roll over so I can make the splint," the stallion said plainly. Right. The old Crackle snarl came back to life. "Quit treating me like a damn newborn." Crackle rolled onto his back and went into the other side. His shoulder was already beginning to swell up and become a mix of a red blister and sicklish purplish blues. "So," the stallion said, thoroughly impressed, "so you really did put it on you." "They got it up on me. Never would have bloody happened if I saw it coming. I would have plowed her stupid muzzle in. And boy, when this leg heals, I'll do just that." Crackle sounded like he was brimming with vengeance. If it wasn't for his handicap, he would be throttling wrists to a worse extent than what the stallion had done. And if Crackle didn't recover soon enough, he'd probably have some other point to it. Or surely Rant would be caught in the thick of it. She would be willing to throw herself into the line to save her sister. She wouldn't even want to die alongside her. In the end, I would be alone. No doubt that some kind of punishment would await. I could only hope it would be quick. 1 apple for 3 lives. I now realized that stealing the apple was completely not worth it. At the time, my blasted hunger got the better of me. It was the pain that did it. The pain of starving, of going another day without a meal. Pain makes a slave out of any pony. I looked toward the ground in regret. Celestia, take me up to the great skies above. I don't deserve to live a moment longer. I'm just a thief who has no regard for the lives of his friends. My only friends. Now here they are, waiting for their due appointments with the Reaper pony. All I did was help its being on the schedule. I wish I could have... "Hey! Look at the... Splash!" I let to see Crackle wasn't on the dock anymore. The stallion was looking over the edge, and his hose were poking out of the wire. It was Crackle's hose. He was trying to get his head above water. The stallion sprinted towards me and pushed me onto the dock. There was one brief shout for help before the dock shook in one big jerk. It was a muffled explosion, shooting water up into the air and showering it all over us in the dock. That was followed by a brief sprinkling of drops tapping on the water's surface. Then there was silence. The stallion got off of me and peeked over the edge. "What little was that?" Rant blurted out a stranger. She was holding her ears, which must have been ringing. Mine definitely were. The stallion ignored her. Instead, he glanced around the surrounding fog with his ears alert. It must have been farther away than whatever the blast was, as the ringing slowly dissipated into the sounds of the salt water splashing up against the wooden beams. I moved to the edge of the dock to find that a slush of red was flowing where Crackle was originally drowning. I looked at the scene for a few moments longer until I realized. "This stranger blew Crackle up!" "Told to go," the stallion said. Turned around to see him put his hat back on, ran over to the still unconscious Risk, throwing over his back. "Hey, let go of her!" Rant yelled. She was going after him, but she ended up clenching her ears again and falling over, moaning. The stallion saw this, and looked over at me and said, "Lot, grab your friend and get her on the boat." I couldn't rest what he said. I just stood there unable to move. As I had many times before, I didn't know what to do. "Lot, look at me!" I snapped out of my trance and stared back at him. He had maroon eyes that were both ferocity and delicacy. His voice demanded attention, without being brutal or unforgiving. In hindsight, he saved us from some point who was bound to kill us one of these days. I focused on him. "Trust me," he said. All the world around me seemed to grind me in a halt. In the midst of the chaos, I had to make a decision that may or may not have been best, but it had to be made all the same. I couldn't think of all the possibilities, of what could possibly happen that were the better options. I only had what was in front of me. My friends, the dock, and the stranger. And Celestia, she still seemed to be valuable enough to save. A second passed by, and then I made my decision. I nodded to the stallion and ran to Rant, who was struggling to get back onto her hose. I lifted a leg of hers over my shoulder and began to move toward the boat. Redondo, wait, you! Her grip around my neck tightened. I pulled more of her weight as she was starting to fall back down. Not being the most strongest pony he ever meant, I had to rely on purely on adrenaline alone to get Rant to the boat. Just before I was about to tumble inside the dinghy with her, I looked up at the fog around me and thought, was today really supposed to be a sunny day? Half an hour later, we ended up sailing out of the harbor and straight into Horseshoe Bay. Not much said between Annie pony on the dinghy. This was due to both the fact that we didn't want to make too much noise to attract attention to ourselves, and the fact that we were in the dinghy of a stallion who just killed a pony, even if that pony was one of the worst. Risk had also awoken after we left the harbor, and all of our animalistic rage had left her. The twin sisters embraced, yet never spoke to each other, or asked the other if they were okay. They needed no words, just a moment. Still, Rant was constantly aching from the non-stop ringing in her ears, so the stallion offered her painkillers, and after minutes of constant back and forth between him and Rant about whether or not she could trust him that the pills simply wouldn't kill her, she took them. She eventually passed out due to the overwhelming excitement we just had. Rant slept over his side. Seeing as there wasn't anything else soft to sleep on, we had been continuing eastward, out of the bay, when the stallion stopped roaring and looked to the fog with contemplation. He broke the silence by saying, "The boss saw had it coming." You mean Crackle had it coming? I asked. Of course not. The pony was a prick. What's the water to say? Stallion says he leaned up against the end of the dinghy. I didn't know how to respond. While I did agree with him, I was still shocked by the nature of which these events had all occurred. I looked over at Risk and she just sat there, petting Rant's hand and occasionally scouting out the fog with dangers. She was paying this conversation no mind. At least she was trying not to. No matter. A furry questions had spawned inside me, and I had to unleash them. However, my stutter would fall short. Why did he have it coming? And if he did, why didn't you just let Risk kill him? She could have done it, I saw Risk through a death glare at me. I squeaked and took that as a hint to stop talking. Slumping into my seat, I still remembered that Risk loved any pony to speak for her. Except for Rant, of course. I thought about shutting my mouth for good. And there, considering I had done enough harm to my friends to last the rest of their lives. The stallion saw this, but chose not to comment on it. Instead, he leaned forward and looked at me curiously. Because of that, there's a difference between a slave killing a pony and a pirate killing a pony, he said. Well, that doesn't mean that... I was in the middle of saying until my brain finally recognized the one word he said. Pirate! Wait, you're a pirate? I jumped to my seat. Risk turned to the stallion, not with the same terrifying expression as I, but with a curious raised eyebrow. The stallion stood up, took off his hat, and bowed. Steady silence of the Wildstyle, at your service. I knew what that ship, the Wildstyle, was. I knew her crew was notorious for doing, pillaging and plundering all along the eastern equestrian seaboard, as any ship was fair game to their cannons and cutlasses. Shady Sands. I couldn't be more terrifying hearing that name, for that was the name of the ship's captain, and here he was, standing before me. No longbringers or vigilantes have brought this stallion to justice. Most seafarers surrendered willingly whenever they see a ship on the horizon, unless they want the worst to happen to them. It was at this time the fog began to evaporate. The sky began to fill colors with the sunrise. It was reminding me of that promise the wind had given me earlier. A bright and sunny day has yet to come. I looked east, and there it was. Celestia's sweet sun pinking over the cultic sea, giving the land light to light. An onshore breeze touched my cheek and flew through my mane. What does this all mean? I thought in disbelief. Good luck or an omen? Aye. Looks like it's going to be a bright and sunny day, doesn't it? Shady commented. I felt my spine shiver when he said that. The pirate said the exact words my mind thought the wind was telling. No matter how coincidental that may have been, it undoubtedly unsettled me. Was I going mad? I had to think of something else to say. I felt like a tiny rat bat in the front of a mancore, so I shifted my eyes back to him and began to stutter out nonsense. At least to me, it was the best nonsense I could come up with. Do you realize you're stealing from Lancer Blackgold? Aye, Sadie replied. Well, beating on the high seas, I realized a lot of things, lad. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a steel cylinder case. The case had a symbol on it. A gold bar and lance perpendicular to each side and circle. That was Lancer's seal and cutie mark. He opened the end of the case and let 3 scrolls of paper fall flat on his hoof. Tossed the case overboard. He rolled out the scrolls on his seat and began to read them. Then looked at me and asked, "Redondo, is it?" I nodded my head. "Yes." "You're the ship salesman?" I started to panic at the thought that he had taken our slave parables from Crackle while he was looking in his saddlebag. "Yes, sir," I said nonetheless, trying not to look completely terrified. "And the Escalante of Lectomasius?" Rand didn't acknowledge him. She just simply looked down at her sister and stroked her mane. I had to answer for her. "Yes, they do," I said. "No wonder you was treated with such grace. By the way, I overheard that babbling maniac was shouting before I rolled up on the scene." So he was in fog the entire time, just waiting for a chance to cause mayhem? That's a comforting thought. "Also, you're in the wrong tense, Redondo," he says. He shook his head and crumpled up scrolls of paper to walls. "They did the work for Lance's mind sales. They no longer do." "What?" I asked with my mouth wide open. "How can you say such a thing? Are you stealing us from him? Lancer's our master!" At the moment, Sadie took wads of paper in his hose and swiftly threw in the wire. "What?" "Nobody else is your master, lad," he said as he leaned against the end of the dinghy again. "Oh, I don't look now, but my mates are coming to pick us up now." He raised the hook and pointing off a distance towards a sailing frigate, pointing in our direction. It had black sails, and its wood was that of a darkened bark, with red painted trims around its main cotton openings, both its fronts and side. The flag was raised up its mast. It was of a pony skull with 2 bones marking the shape of an X behind it. The entire presence of that ship screamed of chaos and death. It was heading straight for us. I was the only thing that was coming out of my mouth. My very life and existence had changed in a matter of a single morning. I never knew what it was like to be free. You called this being free. I was absolutely frightened and confused with nowhere to go. Is this what it was like to be free, I thought? Sitting on his side and peered at the sky, I was about to start hyperventilating. This paid me no mind. I was busy tending to Rant. I was with 3 other ponies, 2 of which were my friends. I never felt so alone. I was trying to ask Celestia why this was happening, but Sadie interrupted my plea for salvation. "Do you know about the Sadie-san Sufferlot?" "The what?" I asked back. I wasn't able to first articulate what he had said due to the overwhelming sense of doom that overwhelmed my mind. "Sadie-san Shuffle? Well, I should really call it my Shuffle sense." "Sadie-san Shuffle?" I repeated, saying my name. "Aye," Sadie cackled. "No, it's punted. What's actually it tells you to owed me 10 caps." 10 caps? Was the captain of the Wild Style, the most feared pirate vessel in the East, trying to scam me for cash? I was utterly dumbfounded. Was this stallion supposed to be scourged of seas? That's no cheesesteak? "What are the rules is, unless you've done the shuffle yourself, you'll have to pay to use the name." "There are rules? What kind of craziness is that?" "Want me to recite all of them?" I shook my head, still flabbergasted. What is the Sadie-san Shuffle anyway? The other rubbish of the situation was actually starting to get me mad. What so-called shuffle in all Celestia's green earth could possibly be so grand? You to pay 10 caps in order to... So what they caps you on right now? Oh, right. Bugger me, I cursed myself. Sadie sat there with a smile of triumph. As I straightened up in my seat, tried to look at him with what's left of my dignity. Insanity. A few moments passed before Sandy deemed it long enough for the scene to have sunk into my soul, continuing on. "So what I did in that crackle of yours," he said, not saying, "takes a little bit of pickpocketing, a little bit of luck, and a whole lot of finesse." "I don't understand," I said. Truly, I had no idea what he was talking about. "It's called a Shuffle for a reason." He pulled out a healing potion and held it in front of him. "It was not about what you're taking away from that poor bastard." So he reached into another of his poke and pulled out a grenade, holding it with his other hoof. "It's about what you're giving them as a replacement." Boom! Guys, I didn't hear that, right?